we are in the heart triad, also known as the shame triad, also known as the image triad.
Yep. So we're working with all kinds of stuff today. We're working with shame as our core emotion. So every type we talk about is going to have a particular relationship with shame. And we'll talk about kind of what those mean. And then we're also working with the image triad. So you may notice that Hannah and I work really hard to get glamorous before we talk to you. And that's because we are image points. We were actually supposed to start today at 10 o'clock and it's almost 12 because we spent like 45 minutes in the bathroom being like, my lipstick, my eyelashes.
Well, to be fair, we were also chatting and talking about life things and, taking our sweet time.
We were, but it was cute. It was cute.
Yeah, it was cute.
We would do that.
So this is going to be a really fun episode because I think that since Monica and I are both heart points, and so you're going to get some good demonstrations of the energetics of heart points because that's us. And you're also going to get if you're watching the video, a good image and understanding why these are all called the image points. And might be a little more in your feels because we're both naturally more in our feels when we're talking about the heart points. Yeah, folks in the heart triad tend to be just more aware of their feelings. Even if they are avoiding them actively, they're still kind of aware that they're having them. So we're going to talk about some feelings. I love teaching the heart triad in particular live because you can kind of see everybody's heart kind of leaking out into their face. Yeah, people's eyes tend to get kind of watery. Wet. Yeah, it's really it's a lovely experience to like be with people when their heart is opening. So I'm excited to talk about heart triad today. Yeah. So when we're talking about the heart triad, we are referring to type 2, type 3, and type 4. The thing that all three of those types have in common is, well, they're right next to each other on the Enneagram. They are right back to back to one another. And they also all have the core emotion of shame. So we have type 2 that is externalizing that core emotion of shame. Type 3 is avoiding or numbing the feeling of shame. And type 4 is internalizing it. So we'll talk a little bit more about kind of what that means and how that shows up when we get into the types, which we're going to start right now. So we'll start with type 2. Type 2 which is Monica.
That's me. Hello. If you think I'm really cute and bubbly, it's through no fault of my own. It's because I'm a type 2. And type 2s do tend to be pretty described as cute or sweet or bubbly in some capacity. There's something kind of effervescent about their energy. And a lot of times, the energetic of 2, you'll kind of notice that there is an intensity in their eyes. When they look at you, it kind of feels like they're boring into your soul in some way. And that's because
they kind of are.
They kind of are.
They're kind of trying to do that.
I kind of am, yeah. And it's because what they're kind of looking for when they're looking at you is, what do you need and how can I make that happen for you? So the eye contact, if you can imagine looking at someone who's trying to figure out something that you need that you're not saying, it might be kind of intense. They may be looking for something that doesn't necessarily mean that it's there. So for type 2, the energetic is, they're usually kind of small people, has been my experience. Like there's something kind of compact about them, and there's a really intense eye contact, and there's usually something kind of bubbly or fun or sweet about them. Or alluring.
They're a seductive type. And while that can mean like sexually seductive, especially with 2, not necessarily. It could just be seductive in the sense of, I'm going to seduce you into meeting all of your needs and figuring out what all of your needs are. So because of this, like 2s do tend to be pretty like cute, bubbly, nice people. And you'll notice even today, Monica has another poof. We pointed out in one of our early episodes that Monica had a poof, and it's a different day today, and she has one.
Poof of life. Poof of life. It's because in real life I'm really short, So my poof gives me like a good couple inches of height. Like I'm not even 5 feet tall. So
I wonder, I'm curious what other twos, their reasoning for their poof, or seriously, like if you're a two, think about, do you have your hair in like a scrunchie?
Or do you wear like a beanie?
Do you have like, right.
With like a big poof on it?
Yeah.
I only want beanies with poof on it.
Like a bun.
Yeah. If anyone wants to pay me to wear beanies with poofs on them, I'm down for that. Just a little side note.
So tell us about how is two externalizing shame?
Yeah, so externalizing, what we mean by that when we say that word is really about taking the feeling and pushing it outward. So for twos, let me back up and just say that twos really want to be seen. And a lot of times they see themselves as really altruistic givers that put themselves last, and maybe they don't have any needs, or they're just really unaware of their needs. And that, when I say needs, I mean like emotional needs or physical needs, even like water, food, rest. So that creates this relationship where the two is kind of doing for others and kind of thinking about things in terms of being outside of themselves and really kind of making things happen outside of self. And they're focusing on things outside of themselves to avoid the feeling of shame. And the feeling of shame for two comes up really easily whenever there's an indication that they might need something, or that they maybe aren't completely altruistic in the things that they do or the things that they give, or they feel like they've given to someone and they're not getting what they expect to get back. The feeling of shame comes up, and the way that they deal with that is by not taking care of themselves, but like pushing it outwards by doing things for other people, or even just like thinking about other people. Sometimes when I am in a hard place in my life, I notice that I tend to be kind of saying yes to doing favors for people a lot more often. And it's because it's really hard to sit with that icky kind of deep shame feeling. So all of these behaviors come from the essence of two, which I'm going to let Hannah talk about because she does a good job.
Well, before we jump into essence, I wanted to ask you, when you were younger, would you have identified the feeling of shame associated with meeting your own needs or having needs? I'm just curious about that.
I think that's a good question. To be honest with you, I feel like I didn't even realize that well, that's not true. My story is that when I was a kid, I feel like I actually spent a lot of time in 4 and was a super like sad, emotional kid, but only when I was by myself. So I would like go to my room and have my feelings, but like if you ask my parents, they'll be like, oh, she was like such a delightful, like she was always smiling, you know, she was really curious and helpful and loving, and they often referred to me as a little adult. And so I would have those big deep feelings. That was my inner experience, but on the outside other people couldn't see that.
I see.
Yeah,
I see.
it's a good question.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because a lot of twos will report that they can't even get in touch with the feeling of shame or with the feeling of having needs if there's other people around at all. There's so much attunement that's happening to other people that
I definitely
they can be cut off from that.
Yeah, I definitely experienced that. Where like if I'm around other people, I won't notice that I'm like hungry or lonely or angry. Like if I'm in the energy of someone else, I have to like remove myself and go for a walk or like go do something by myself to really touch into. And it might be a situation where it's like something happened 3 weeks ago, but I've been around that person consistently, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, actually that really hurt my feelings, or that wasn't good. And that's some big work for twos for sure.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I asked, was because of the work. Because like we said in previous episodes, all the types are on a spectrum of, and the really, really fixated version of two could be a complete cutoff from your feelings, a complete cutoff from your needs, where you don't even recognize. Don't even recognize that you're hungry. You can't even when you're by yourself, you can't figure out what you need. But Monica's also done a lot of work, and she's that's why I asked that.
Yeah, thanks.
As did you immediately feel the shame, or is that a result of self-work, of being like, oh, that is what I'm feeling?
Yeah, I would say that it wasn't like a natural. I think I felt more sadness as a kid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have called it shame. I would have called it sadness.
Yeah. Cool. Good clarification.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about type 2. The essence of 2 is called infinite pure compassion, and I just love that. We teach that the personality or the fixation is trying to mimic essence, and essence is this beautiful, natural, abundant quality that is unique to each of the types. So 2s have a natural abundance of pure, infinite compassion, but it's a boundaried compassion in essence. It's not the type of compassion where 2 is being selfless and they're giving and giving and giving to everyone else, because we need to be able to give to ourselves first and be able to fill our own cup to really be able to practice true compassion. And so the personality is trying to mimic it, but 2s already have all of that. And my favorite story about being in the presence of really healthy 2s is that there's I feel like I could say anything in the world and I would still be accepted and loved, and it really does feel like unconditional love. But then that 2 is present, and they sit, and then they're like, I'm really tired, I need to go to bed. And then they get up and go to bed. And even if I'm still in my feels and in my place. So that's what I mean by it's compassion, but it's also very boundaried. And where the 2 is in tune with their own needs. It's like the boundary allows the infinity. Yeah.
Right? Like, so if we're giving from a structured place, so like if I like to use, 2s like to buy presents. So I like to think about this in terms of like buying a present for someone, and we're recording this around the holidays, so it's the perfect time to talk about that. But if I have a particular like budget or something for a present that I buy for someone, then I created that as a way to like take care of myself. Like I still need groceries, right? But then if I overextend and I spend hundreds of dollars more than I needed to, then I'm not taken care of. And later on, when I realize that I don't have money for groceries, I'm going to be resentful. So it's not this giving from this like infinite selfless place where like I don't need money for groceries. It's a giving from a boundaried, structured, like I've already taken care of myself, and that's why I'm able to give to you in this way, which feels so different to receive also. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for letting me jam about presents. I love presents.
Oh, I know you do.
Yeah.
So that's a tiny brief skimming about type 2.
Yep.
And we'll go on to the avoidant point of shame, type 3. So the energetic of 3. My favorite way to describe this is if you are a heart point who is full of passion and full of deep emotion, but you are simultaneously feel that emotions are really inefficient. There's nothing efficient about them. They're quite slow.
Yeah, it's like I have a bunch of them, but I don't really like to hang out with them because they don't do anything for my life.
Right. And simultaneously trying to cut yourself off and avoid the feeling of shame. And so I can't really see on the screen, I'm putting a box around my heart right now, because 3s in their energetic almost have this like chesty, they're almost like putting their chest forward a little bit when they're walking around. And
it's like, get this out of me. It's not helping me achieve my goals.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So 3s are avoiding the feeling of shame, which is understandable. Shame is such a painful feeling.
Oh my God, it's so icky.
And something unique about the heart points is that they're all trying to win or gain love or worthiness through the fixation. Because all the heart points, all of them have some problems, struggling, hustling for worth. So 2s hustle for worth through being self-sacrificing, giving to others, meeting others' needs. Threes are winning worth through achieving and through performing. It's almost like if you don't feel like your authentic normal self is good enough or worthy of anything, threes are trying to put on a performance of some kind. Or maybe when I'm really good at this skill, maybe when I get all the A's, maybe when I'm the best chef in the world. Like there's like this climbing and this hustling for worth.
Right. It's like I'll deserve it when I get there kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of threes, I've heard so many threes say that when they learn about the Enneagram, they don't identify immediately with three because of all the talk about achievement and performance. Because a lot of threes, they're like, well, I'm not actually that successful. So there's a big relationship in a three mindset of between failure and success. And so you might not see yourself as being successful if you're a three, but chances are other people do. A lot of times threes, even as children, they, I work with kids and I'll hear parents say things like, they're so capable, they designed their own video game and it's amazing. Like it's like pro level. And so why can't they bring up their grade in science? They have so much capabilities. And they do. Threes tend to be pretty amazingly skilled people at what they set their minds to.
I like to think about it like if I am hustling for worthiness, if I'm like hustling for love and for worthiness and for relationship and not like achieving things from a place of authenticity, from like really wanting it, then of course I'm going to do kind of a bare minimum shoddy job. Right? So this is a thing with threes where like, they may, whatever the person wants or expects of them, it may be a situation where like they do bare minimum to kind of get by and get the love, get the thing, but they don't do it the way that they would do it if they were authentically, intrinsically motivated by it. So if a three is like really into video games but not into science, then they might do fine in science to make it worth mom's while because they know that mom wants them to do that, but they're really going to excel at video games. And that's part of the path of three, is like really tapping into that authentic desire and that kind of like intrinsic motivation for things, finding that.
Right, because sometimes threes can find themselves caught up in achieving for everyone except them. Like getting into a career that they don't like, or finding themselves at the top of the corporate ladder and being like, why did I do this? Why am I here? Am I actually happy? Do I like this? And so really it is the path of three to tune in to their heart's desires and to use all of that amazing capabilities that they have to do something that truly serves them and truly makes them happy.
Yeah.
For them, for themselves.
So the essence of three, what they are kind of imitating or what creates the fixation is the essence, which is called awe. That's A-W-E, awe. Not like aw, but like awe. And also called appreciation. So for threes, there is this really beautiful kind of abundance to be in awe of and appreciate everything already as it is. And the fixation gets created because they have trouble having that towards themselves. It's like, I'll be worthy of appreciation when I do X, when I get my master's, when I get my PhD, when I cure cancer, when I finish this book, right? So it's always like I have to be productive and I can't be appreciated or worthy of that until I accomplish this task.
Yeah, very task oriented. There often can be a lot of anxiety with type 3 and the anxiety of what happens when you sit and do nothing. And that's a really good piece of work for threes, is to sit and do nothing and see what comes up for them and be able to sit with that emotion.
Just really quickly, because I can't remember if we said this yet or not, but three is called the achiever. I don't remember if we talked about that or not, but
I don't know.
That's the name of three.
We might forget things.
Yeah. Called the achiever.
So, Another fun little bit about threes, since we're in the image triad, and it's called the image triad because all of the heart points have something very noticeable about the way that they look. And all of the heart points are putting energy into their image in some form or fashion. And sometimes that's like their actual image, like the way they do their hair, what they put clothes on their body, all of that stuff.
A poof.
The shoes that you're putting, the shoes that you're wearing. And sometimes it could be an image that you're cultivating, almost in the way that you want others to perceive you. So for type 3, they're doing that. Their clothes and the way that they dress tends to be very clean and crisp. They tend to look almost like professional a lot of the times. We
like
actually
even in sweatpants.
Yeah.
Looking professional.
Yeah, they look like crisp, clean, well put together. And their hair tends to be that way. If it's like shorter hair, it's cut in this really clean way.
Or just like always done. Like they spent time like blow drying it or something that day. Yeah, it's like always done really perfectly.
Or the hat that's on is like really well coordinated with the rest of the outfit.
The other thing about threes and image is that they don't, it may change. The image may change depending on the environment or the situation. So 1-3 that I'm very close to will pack their clothes for places that they travel according to what they perceive the culture of where they're going to looks like. So if they're going to New York, they'll pack a lot of like black and really chic things. If they're going to Florida, it's like all resort wear, right? Lots of Lily Pulitzer. If they're going to California, they get out their boho duds. And so it's like, it changes depending on the situation.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really excellent point. There's so many great things to say about all of these types, and so we could just keep talking and talking about this.
For forever.
We really could.
Yeah. And we will.
We will. But type 4 now.
Type 4. Look, it's type 4. Look, there she is.
Ding.
In all of her glory, Hannah's a type 4. Hannah's the specialist 4.
I'm a self-preservation 4, also called the enduring 4. It's a subtype that is the counter type in 4. And so one of them does not look like the others, and that's me. So we always say this joke that I'm the specialist 4. I'm the most special.
Yeah. So the reason why that's funny, for those of you who are like, why, okay, great, she's the specialist 4, what's that about? So the reason why that's funny is because type 4s win love by being special.
Special and unique.
Special and unique. Their story and their narrative inside is really about, if I am different enough, if I'm unique enough, that's when I will achieve love. So the type 4 is called the individualist, as you can imagine, right?
The artist.
The tragic, romantic. Yeah.
So fours, the energetics of 4, they tend to be, if you look closely for self-preservation 4, you can see the sadness. For the other 2 subtypes of 4, it's a little more obvious. It's a little, they're wearing it on their sleeves a little more. And so 4s might even be talking about sad things more readily, or engaging in things that create a certain mood or create a certain level of emotionality.
They're like always down to have a really deep conversation. They're those friends that you have where, you start off talking about chicken wings and then all of a sudden it's like the horrors of the world, and you can just go there together and it feels okay.
Yeah, I know. I do that. I do that. My partner likes to make fun of me because I frequently take things to a really, really deep level. But he's a 3, and they secretly really like that. They like it because it feels real and authentic and insightful. And
I like it. I'm into it. Yeah. So 4 is the internalizing point in the heart triad. They are taking the emotion of shame and kind of putting it in a ball and putting it inside of themselves. So the way that affects their energetic is they tend to be a little bit more kind of sunken in, a little more reserved. There's like a little bit more kind of protection around the heart space versus 3s that are kind of trying to get it out of them, and 2s that are just like kind of out of contact with it and bouncing around. But for 4, it's like it's being kind of held in. And there's sometimes fours will describe like there's a deep well of emotion that they can feel in their heart space. Feels deep.
Mm-hmm. And often if you follow that deep well down, there's shame at the very bottom of it. Fours are probably the most in touch with shame. Certainly out of the heart triad, but probably out of all of the entire Enneagram.
They be knowing about shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's part of the fixation. Part of the fixation of four says, I am different. Mm-hmm. It's like there's something bad about me. Everyone else is connected to love and is okay, but I'm somehow outside of that. Mm-hmm. And fours try to hustle to get to gain worth, or to deal with that feeling of shame, by almost like making themselves more different or making themselves more unique.
Can I tell you something so funny?
Yes.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you. I'm noticing this and I just have to talk about it. So type 2s really have a hard time being in the like deep well of shame. It's like really hard. So the whole time Hannah's talking about four, I have this Backstreet Boys song stuck in my head that I'm not going to sing. But it is like a really deep, sad Backstreet Boys song. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. I just noticed that and I think it's really funny.
When I was a teenager, we were just talking about this when I was younger and Backstreet Boys were like a thing. I was like, oh, they're way too mainstream. Like, I can't. Like them.
I can't. They don't get me.
No, they were way too mainstream. They weren't unique enough. I didn't like them. I hope no one's offended by this. I'm very much making fun of myself.
Oh my gosh, yes, totally. Backstreet Boys, you guys are the best.
Yeah, I like them more now.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's all good. Anyway, one day I'm going to do like Backstreet Boys songs for all the types. It's going to be great.
Oh boy.
Hold on to your hat.
I know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the essence of four, moving on. Anyway, I interrupted, so I'll fix this. The essence of four is radiant love and joy, which is really funny because when we think about shame and the deep, awful horrors of the world, joy isn't usually the first thing that comes to mind. So, but joy is actually the kind of shadow side of shame in a way. Joy is the direct opposite. If they were on the zodiac wheel, they would be Pisces and Virgo. They are directly opposite each other. And there is this like, it's almost like a kid that's just like really curious about the world, or like when someone sees something beautiful for the first time, or when someone's really fully present in the moment. And I think the beautiful thing about four is that when we allow ourselves to really access all of those feelings, like four often does, we also have full access to joy. Yeah. So for most of us, we only allow ourselves maybe a percentage of access to our hard feelings. So maybe I only allow myself to feel 20% of my shame. And it's like, well, then you probably only experience 20% of the joy that's available to you. Mm-hmm. So what type 4 is doing is they're kind of trying to mimic radiant love and radiant joy by being special. That's the feeling that they're trying to get.
Well, because when I like people that I'm friends with, when I see them in essence and I can see it, it really is so beautiful and so special and unique. Like it's very noticeable. And so it makes total sense to me that the essence is trying to mimic being unique. But they don't need to do that because they already are.
You are the specialist angel in the whole world. You have special glitter sparkle wings.
I would like those kind of wings.
She does.
If I had wings.
Hannah is the most specialist. Yeah.
So that's pretty much that's the heart triad.
There it is. Full of heart.
Full of heart.
We love you, from us to you. The heart triad. Sending our hearts through the internet world.
And if we have a lot more information about Essence on our Instagram and Facebook pages.
Oh yeah,
we had a whole series about essence. If you're feeling confused about what we're talking about,
if you're curious, that's a really good place to get that information. The other thing is, I don't really hear other Enneagram folks talking too much about essence, so tune in and we'll probably be talking more about that, because I think it might be specific to our tradition. And
it's really big in the embodiment tradition and how we were taught. So you'll hear us mention it a lot. And I think it's really special because it's the thing that's left in us when we've been doing a lot of work for ourselves. So check it out. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.